right team, the right tech, at the right time.
Bring on FY21.
Make it count.
Hi, folks. This is Matt, and welcome to the USEC FY21 DTA presentation. A little bit unusual DTA this time, but we've got about 30 minutes together, and hopefully we can make it as entertaining as possible. I've got some folks who will join me along the way. Looking forward to a great session. So if you look at this slide, it does have the slogan, if you will, make it count. And I think you'll see that strewn throughout our conversation today, as well as going forward. And what that's all about is all the efforts that have gone over the last 15 months and prior to that have come in the making of this year. How do we make it count? And when we think about really amplifying everything that we have in front of us, but also the resources and the investments we've made to date to just get to stellar results as we go forward. But before I go into that, I want to start with a big thank you. And this thank you's kind of a couple of different lenses. The first one is to our employees over the last year. 2020 has been a year that I don't think anyone's ever going to forget. But it's been very difficult in our environment, especially. And I think about the home life balance with work and for how that blends together a little bit. Frankly, the amplification of our customer concerns that are weighing on us on a daily basis. And last, the economy that's hitting our industries very, very hard here in USEC. We're getting an especially strong dose of that. So the leadership, the tenacity, the grit that's gone on to deliver results in the last year has been incredible. I've never seen anything like it in my career. I'm just so proud to be part of the team relative to that. Second thank you goes out to the last 60 days. So we've obviously had multiple pivots and reorgs that have hit us at once. And frankly, I want to give a huge thank you for all those who have focused and led and frankly delivered on something that is a work in process. But the reality is we're way ahead of the curve as we also deal with the typical year pivot that we always have when you're in a technology company. But I want to give you a huge thank you from that perspective. But I use the term make it count. But this team made it count last year, and I'd be remiss to not mention what's gone on in USCC in the last 12 months, definitely in FY20. 20% year-over-year growth, just phenomenal in a company this size at $13.5 billion for USEC to deliver that level of growth. I mean, I look out into the industry and you see someone like Oracle who's doing ticker tape parades and firing off guns because they have 1% growth at a fraction of our size. This is an amazing number. I look at another number like 70% cloud mix. When you think about the journey that started over a decade ago with Microsoft moving to the cloud, that we would get to 70% of our revenue generated from there. That's an amazing accomplishment when you look at the history and how this company has pivoted, right? And we're the leader in that, 10 points more than any other part in the US sub from that perspective. And then there's all the other pieces that are germane to USCC. When you look at, frankly, the Azure leader of the planet of this company, it is USEC. You look at D365 and apps, we're number one. You look at E5, number one again when you're in the modern workplace cloud. And then you finish, obviously, from a perspective of driving across the board for not only security, but driving also for Teams, which in the modern workplace cloud, we are also the leader when you look at Teams Now. So just a phenomenal job of making it count in this last year. And you've done a terrific job. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about partners. And I want to first welcome our partners for joining us today. You're an incredibly important part of our motion and our team. And when I think about partners, I think about a number of things. First, I think about scale. You've got 4 times the number of feet on the street than we do when you're calling on our accounts. So scale is important. I think about credibility. Right? This is a case where human nature would tell you, you're sitting around a table with three parties. One of them's us, one's a partner, one's the customer. It's always better to have your story told by a partner because it's just better than having it told by a salesperson or a team. It's just the way it works. So you have more credibility, to be fair. And the last piece I'd talk about is reach and proximity. This has everything to do with completing some of our solutions if you're an ISV that hopefully runs on our technology. Or frankly, if you're an SI, you create that warm blanket that surrounds our solutions that basically paints a picture for the customer of success and explains how is this all going to work, right? We need our partners to help us in that motion going forward. I would tell you we'll learn a lot about partners in DTA, but one thing you'd keep your eyes out for, or your eyes peeled for, is definitely the explanations in our new sponsorship accountability program that we're rolling out to help drive sponsorship down into the OUs, that ultimately making those matches at the account level to help drive more pipeline and get closer with our organizations as we engage with partners. So looking forward to that. Important topic I want to pivot on, though, right now is culture. And we're going to spend a few minutes on this in a couple of different ways. But the first piece I want to say is a big thank you to Brian Wilson for helping us sponsor our D&I initiatives that go forward. And I'm going to touch on D&I first as part of the Microsoft culture. These happen to be three areas that we have a lot of focus this year. First is around increasing our representation. This has everything to do with balancing our teams and making sure that we come to work and we build teams that are balanced. They're stronger teams, they're more productive, they're better to engage with a customer, and frankly, it makes us a better company when we're looking at making sure representation is balanced. Second part of that is developing our talent from a D&I perspective throughout all levels of the organization and making sure at each level those teams are balanced, right? That ultimately balanced, stronger, and put us in a better position. And the last piece has to do with a little bit around D&I, but it has to do with allyship. Obviously, with a lot of the consternation and things that are out there right now, obviously from a social unrest perspective, things are very difficult. And allyship is very important to us here as a part of our culture. And when I think about allyship and I think about our culture, you know, a person that I reach out to, Trey Scott, is going to join us. And Trey is a rock star sales leader that we have out of the South, but he also brings a lot of perspective on this topic. And it's been a pleasure to talk to him in the past. And I felt like it would make sense for us to kind of share a conversation here as we talk about D&I and we talk about allyship. So first of all, Trey, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's good to see everyone.
Excellent. So Trey, you know, Satya had a recent announcement that I thought was pretty powerful about the importance of D&I overall for Microsoft, but also for our customers and frankly for our partners. And so some thoughts of why D&I is such an important topic right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. Satya and his senior leadership really put out three major multi-year efforts that act sort of as a great roadmap for us in USEC. And you've touched on a few in the past presentations. And I think here where we think about the first being increasing our representation and culture of inclusion. And it makes me think of a conversation we had before, right? When I was recently speaking on a panel and the host asked, what are some of the ways in which we can support women in the workplace? And my answer was, well, we could hire women, sponsor women, advocate for women, and promote women. It's pretty simple, right? And I think the point to that, Matt, is that D&I requires planning and action. And our ability to land this with your leadership and Brian Wilson's sponsorship, right, and all of our D&I workstream leaders is the foundation for making USEC this destination organization we talk about. And really, the second initiative that you hear Satya and the senior leadership talk about is engaging our partner ecosystem. And you said it beautifully already, right? I mean, we are nothing without our partners. And frankly, we are a reflection of each other. And the power of change that can be driven by Microsoft with our partners is unbelievable, which leads me to really the third point, which is probably my favorite, strengthening our communities, which makes you think of change beyond the job. It's more than just looking internally. It's improving the lives of people across the country, including the safety of Black and Brown lives, the empowerment of girls and women, visibility and safety of our trans family, and continue to be advocates for accessibility. I mean, what I know to be true, Matt, is that the choices we make today inform the culture we create tomorrow.
Just terrific points, Brian. I'm sorry, Trey. And the reality behind it is that this is such an important topic, but to be planning and be mindful, I think is getting your head wrapped around that is very important, right, from that perspective. So thank you for that. Now, when you talk about where to start, right, and folks will ask that question. I know personally I've asked that question in the past, right? Where do you start on this journey? And just some thoughts around that.
It can be overwhelming for some, right? So where's the beginning? Where's the end? But I like to put it in for sort of simple terms, right? If we put so much emphasis on being customer focused, which at Microsoft means understanding every nuance of a customer's ecosystem, experience, economics, right? And even the values of the organization and its people. But it's time that same commitment and scrutiny becomes a focus internally, right? That we really apply it to ourselves. It's asking ourselves, how am I showing up at work? What am I doing to make my colleagues feel welcomed in the workplace? And we've seen the impact of empathy at Microsoft when we start to listen to our customers, right? Listening more than we speak. Now imagine what that impact would be if we showed up that way for our teams and partners and really everyone around us.
Yeah, fantastic. 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? From a listening perspective, it goes a long way. And I apologize, I had Brian Wilson on my mind. That guy just has an effect on me. But I said that earlier, Trey. But you know what? One last question for you, right? When we talk about ways we can be allies for each other, right? And dive into that. Maybe some examples or some thoughts on that in closing.
Yeah, I think that makes me think of a quote that I recently saw, which was, the older I get, the more I realize that most of the work is unlearning rather than learning. The easy way is to look to others for the solution, but allyship requires accountability at the end of the day. Everyone must take ownership over their own journey. And it's on each of us who sit from some place of privilege, right? Including myself. I mean, I'm a young, gay, Black man from the South, and I have privilege, right? And I have a place where I need to sort of lean in and have my own unlearning to do, which means that each of us are responsible to removing the burden from communities experiencing trauma and take action. Empathy starts with putting the other person in the center. And allyship, the true allyship, will always come at a cost. And it's usually our own comfort. But I believe that our growth comes from that discomfort. And really, comfortable being uncomfortable isn't just about digital transformation at the end of the day.
Great points. And again, that discomfort is something that sometimes is required, right, in this journey. And I think that's a very wise way to put it. So Trey, again, thank you very much, sir. Pleasure as always. Definitely some tremendous points of inspection and frankly reflection there that I think are very valuable. I'm sure all would agree. So thank you, sir, and I appreciate it and look forward to our next conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. Talk soon.
All right. So I'm going to keep moving and stay on culture for a second. And culture for Microsoft D&I is obviously an important cog. But there's other aspects of our culture that I also am very proud of as a Microsoft employee, but hopefully you also recognize. Some of it is reflected in this chart here as you look at, frankly, our commitments to sustainability. And if you've heard the Atlanta Lakes conversation I had with Kate earlier today, that effectively goes down that path and the efforts that are there. But our skilling initiative is pretty important as well. And what that's about is to drive skilling and provide it to folks in the cities and different areas of the country or infrastructure that don't have that access, to grow the D&I and grow the culture within the tech industry. Right? I think it's very important. We'll continue to invest in that. AI is an interesting topic, right? There's a couple of prongs to this piece. The first being, obviously, from an AI for good perspective, being a leader in technology to drive towards, frankly, making sure there are standards out there that AI is used for the correct purposes. Second part has to do with our AI country plan and actually driving that into, frankly, exactly where you want to be around AI. And that this is a combination of customers, municipalities, cities, going together to solve problems that can help society and using AI for the right reason. And the last piece you see here is just one more example of many, which is our work with DACA and the entire scenario there. And obviously a very perilous situation that we want to contribute and help from a humanitarian perspective as we move forward. But why is all this important when you talk about culture? What was interesting about joining the company was what a strong culture Microsoft had. And what's also interesting is how often customers want to talk about it. Right, to ultimately understand not only all the aspects of culture we just reviewed, but also the culture of trust, the culture of, frankly, coming and enabling our customers versus taking their data or competing with them at some point. It's a very powerful message, and more importantly, it's a high ground for us. It is absolutely something that should be at the forefront of your presentations with your customers. It's also the forefront of whether it's an EBC or, frankly, it's a webinar. Take the opportunity to tell our story because customers want to, and more importantly, learn our story. You're living it, You're living it as we speak. Learn our story, make sure you can articulate it. You'll be very surprised at how important that is for customers as we move forward from a culture perspective. When I reflect back a little bit and I want to talk about moving forward and the great things we have going on this year, I do want to talk a little bit about last year and the rebuilding we did, or at least put it this way, some building of our foundation. And some of it was just simple investment in the infrastructure. One good example was span and control, where we added managers at all levels to put us in a better position for model coach care. Real simple. Give our managers more time with their folks to hopefully amplify our performance and frankly be in a much better circumstance. Second area was people, right? We invested in two different surges. One was doubling our sales force around applications. The other one was in data and AI, and that surge that was involved. So we invested in people, brought some new folks into the organization, and frankly did some phenomenal things with bringing in talent and promoted more people than ever in that effort as we went forward. The third thing was around skilling, and that was internal skilling. We logged more hours in skilling than any other 12-month period in the history of the company. Why is that important? We invested through TSI in ourselves. Right, we invested in ourselves relative to that foundation. So very important aspects that went on last year. But we look at the pivot into this year, a couple of other major moves as we realign a little bit. And the first one is we've talked a bunch about industry. And industry is magic because we're going to 7 priority industries that are here for us, or focused industries. 2 of them are national, 5 of them are sponsored. But very important because it takes us down a path of being more focused. Gives us more digestible jobs when you talk about being relevant on the business side, and it puts you in an ecosystem so you have a lot of the same contacts. It also makes it a lot easier to partner. You'll hear the word partner a lot in USEC. It's very important to us. Second piece here is connected customer experience. What's the magic in this? This is all about bringing our new teammates they're always working with us, but now they're in the same boat with us. And I'm talking about our services group. I'm talking about our support group that now join our ATU, our STU and our CSU, and we're all in one boat to drive towards consumption. And what does that mean? Pulled early into these processes, into this account planning, into these transactions. It works time and time again where it yields better and faster results towards consumption. Let's make it count. In both of these cases, let's make it count as we go forward from there. Now let's take a look at some of the things that you're going to see this week as we go through different tools that may be out there. And this is a good example of some of the things that you will touch on, but I'm going to highlight a couple things in yellow for sake of time. One's around MSX, and there's 2 aspects here. The first has to do with MSX in general. And this is a comment that goes back to the field is responsible for populating MSX. This data goes all the way up to our most senior people in the company, and they're looking for a view as to what is going on in the field, how to make decisions based on that. It's that critical. So it's our responsibility to have clean, to have hygiene, to frankly have accurate pipeline and forecasts, to figure out exactly what's working and not working. It's the voice of the field. Please take it very seriously as we go forward. We've done a great job in the past. We need to continue to optimize that. Second piece I want to touch on is MSX content. This is the implementation of Seismic. If you've been involved in the training, you've seen the product, you understand what it brings to a sales cycle and your bag of tools, you'll understand the power of this. I urge you to double click on it and get engaged. It is going to be a big part of our sales motion, and frankly, it's an advantage as you go to market. And the last piece I'll hit on is partners again. There I go again with partners. But this has to do with lead sharing this year. Lead sharing is going to be a very special pivot for us because it has the word share in it. And that's what I would double click on because, again, share is all about collaboration. This is a better formation for us to engage with. I think obviously amplifying this is going to be a big part of what makes us successful. So one last click here relative to tools, and it has to do with sales plays. And sales plays for us, there's been a lot of time, there's been a lot of content, there's been a lot of focus at all levels from corporate all the way down through our organization here in MSUS. But I want to kind of give us a responsibility here as a team. And our responsibility is around feedback. These plays are good. There's a lot of data that's in there, but they're not perfect. And they need feedback. They need the people in the field to dictate what's important in the play and also what is there or not there to make you successful. Or is it a good play in the first place? We need that feedback. Don't just check a box and not go all out. Don't just not even try a play. Let's do it. There's great success stories behind it, but I want to make sure I absolutely convey this. It's going to come back to us giving the feedback because we are the field. We understand how to sell this stuff. and we're the closest to the customer and see those reactions. So it's an opportunity for us to help provide a better set of instructions, and so we can continue to optimize and get better from that perspective as we go forward. So I'm going to shift gears here a little bit, and we'll talk about customer learnings. Got a couple of examples here that I think are excellent, that have been in a very difficult time, but there's definitely some gems out there that we're working forward. And I've actually have some great folks that are going to join me as we go forward here. And the first account we're going to touch on is Halliburton. Halliburton is energy services out of Houston. This is a very difficult industry right now. As you're probably aware, probably a once in a century occurrence where we not only have a lower price of oil, we've got a drop in demand at the same time. This makes things very difficult to call in oil and gas. That said, we've got some very good stories brewing there, and Halliburton was one good example. Came out of the South Central region, which is now part of the South, as did Mr. Matt Renner, who's going to join us. And Matt is the stew leader for the South region, and Matt was instrumental in this opportunity, but also, as you cut him, this guy bleeds petrol. He is an energy guy, and you'll be able to tell right away. But Matt, why don't you walk us through some of the key aspects of this opportunity, as well as some of the learnings you got along the way. So thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, and super proud to talk about Halliburton. You know, Halliburton turned 100 years old just last year, and they're a major player in the oilfield service business, as you said, and just a tremendous brand. So we closed the deal with Halliburton in June, but let me take you back just to March, to your point of a major oil price war going on between the Saudis and Russia that completely devastated the market amid a major slump in demand, like you mentioned, that was caused by the virus, given the complete lockdown in the country. So basically what happened was the price of U.S. oil went negative for the first time in our history. So to give you a little perspective, demand has hit rock bottom. The storage tanks are now completely full. And companies are literally paying traders to take oil off their hands. So you could argue not the best selling environment, but I can tell you, being with Microsoft, very unique opportunity for us and the team to lean into this account in a empathetic way, leading with trust. So to your point about trust, we talked to the CEO and his team about why they chose Microsoft over competitors, AWS in particular. Bottom line is they trust us, and that's something we shouldn't take for granted. Number two, from an outcome selling perspective, we're able to go really understand how we can take some cost out of their business, given the capital pressures they're under, Matt. And through a security assessment, we were able to quantify over $8 million a year, given all the point solutions they had running inside of Halliburton. So they are now moving their entire global population to an integrated Microsoft E5 stack to go along with their major Azure commitment and getting them out of the data centers. The other point I'd talk about is partner. You talked about partner, very strategic alignment with Accenture here to help us frame our Three Horizon message, and they co-invested and brought a very deep industry expertise into this. So we're just very excited about the partnership, and I'd leave you with the next phase. To your point about AI for Good, we're kicking off our strategic AI for Good partnership with Ken and his team next week in Houston. I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Fantastic, Matt. And again, great story of being relevant to the customer and building everything on trust. And I love the reference to the partner in this case as well, which is a fantastic job. So we're going to shift gears here a little bit and talk about a completely different industry. And before anybody gets hungry, and if they're big Chipotle fans, Chipotle's been one of the winners in COVID, if that's such a thing, throughout this process. If you've noticed, they've been able to pivot their business model and thrive during this period. Their stock is almost at $1,300 a share. They're doing very well. But this is a great story with Time of Aver is going to join us, and he is the AE on the account and has helped with a large team that's been involved. But this is a great example where we engage to drive towards business outcomes and be relevant to the customer and how that transformed our relationship going forward. So Time, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take it from here and talk a little bit about the key points of the deal and then ultimately some of the lessons learned. So thanks.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Matt. It's great to be here, and just want to say, thanks for the opportunity to share Chipotle's story. It's been an exciting journey the past 2 years that I've been working with this customer. And what I'll say is the relationship between our organizations really accelerated about 12 months ago. And that was really a result of us engaging more closely with Chipotle's leadership team and focusing on the business outcomes they were looking to solve for. And when I think about the key engagement that helped change that relationship, it was really when we engaged with Chipotle's marketing and data teams to help convert their walk-in customers into loyalty members. And by Microsoft helping them achieve this, Chipotle gains greater insights into who their customers are, which helps them deliver a more personalized and targeted customer experience that results in enhanced customer engagement and increased sales. And when I look back at some of the key learnings our team took from this journey, two really stand out. And the first is around partner engagement. As sellers here at Microsoft, we're great at selling the value of our solutions, doing proof of concepts, walking customers through engagement plans. However, there's always this gap around, getting that solution into production. And what I think the team did a great job of this time around is that we engaged the partner Avtex, right out of the gate, really the onset of this journey. And by having that partner engaged from the beginning, they were an extension to the Microsoft team, which really helped us instill confidence that we could deliver the outcome the customer needed. So that leads me to the second key learning I'll share, and that is when we solve for customers' business needs, it unlocks new opportunities for us all. By helping Chipotle solve for this personalization outcome, it enabled Microsoft to have deeper engagement with Chipotle executives, which has resulted in many new opportunities and us playing a more impactful role in their business. And though it's just me here today, Matt, you and I both know that, I certainly did not do this alone. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody that's been a part of this journey over the past 2 years. And some great news for everybody in the audience today. If you go to your mobile phone, download the Chipotle app, and sign up for their loyalty program, you're going to receive free chips and guacamole, and you'll be supporting a great Microsoft customer. So with that, I'd just like to say thanks again, Matt, for having me, and back to you.
You had me at chips, sir. I'm a simple man, but that's fantastic. And Tom, again, to your points, getting the partner engaged early, getting into the business, changes the relationship long term. And we've seen what's happened since the first transaction and how the commitments have come just in bunches from Chipotle. And we're very excited about the future as we partner with them. So Tom, a fantastic story and terrific job. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to close here a little bit with our North Star, and this has to do with a conversation we've had in the past, but I think the best way to reflect on this is what are we driving towards in USEC this year? What will we judge ourselves at the 6-month mark, at the 1-year mark on accomplishments and going forward? And the first accomplishment I'm hoping to achieve is voice of our industries. This is around make it count again, right? How do we become that voice for Microsoft? How do we become that feedback loop? Because we're going to utilize, and frankly, how do we utilize the fact that we are the largest voice for each of our 7 industries when you look at the total revenue that's going through our accounts, right? We are the biggest player. So how do we become the biggest voice? How do we become the best at feedback relative to that and the go-to area when anything goes down that scenario? Second piece has to be a leader in customer impact and share. I want to pause here to say something I mean sincerely. We have a phenomenal team right now. We have a lot of folks, a ton of folks that are all stars and do a phenomenal job every day on a lot of the things that we're trying to work towards. But we also have folks that are making their way through. And the reality behind it, some are new, some are in new roles. We're trying to move everybody and evolve here. And what we're looking to do is put 1 foot in IT, 1 foot with the customer and the business, and making sure we have that balance so that ultimately we can drive towards business outcomes. It gets us into that third horizon. It gets us into that third cloud. It drives 4 to 5 times the amount of revenue in each account. It gets us share. And so again, we know how to do this, right? A lot of this is just making sure we do it more consistently. And I think that's an important point to make as we evolve. This is an evolution. This isn't a fix. This is an improvement. This is literally a case where we're taking a rock star team and we're evolving as the market pivots. Last piece I'd mention to you is around destination organization. I want this to be the place to be. From a D&I perspective, from a perspective of being proud of the fact that we're the group that delivers, we're the group that can predict where we've been. We've been phenomenal at forecasting. We've been phenomenal around compliance. We do it right. We have integrity. But at the very end of the day, this is the place to be relative to that. So again, destination organization has a lot of aspects, but at the very end of the day, I want to make sure this is the place to be within Microsoft and frankly, the industry from that perspective. So I'm going to close this down with a final comment around Make It Count. And this has everything to do with, hopefully you've gleaned something in the last 30 minutes from this. But at the very end of the day, as you can see, we're set up very well this year, but we've invested in the past. And I think what's very important right now is that the excellent point around the fact that making it count is ultimately on the shoulders of all the efforts we've had in the past. And if we can get focused and get going forward, I think that we can have an excellent year as we utilize all of these assets, resources, and efforts that we've had in the past. So I'm dying to get back out in the field. It's my favorite part of the job. I love working with our teams. I'm going crazy. We do get a lot more done virtually, and I'm looking to help participate, as is all of our leadership team. So get us involved. We're going to ultimately work with our partners to be successful as well. And we're looking forward to a massive FY21. So thanks, folks, and I'll see you out there in the streets.